All right, we will call the Plan Commission meeting to order.
In the ski industry.
Everybody have a chance to take a look at the minutes?
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and second to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Okay, try to get through this quickly. Discussion and possible action on concept development plans for Hudson Center Lot 7, Hudson Center Holdings, LLC.
Thank you, Mayor. The applicant has submitted concept development plans for a new multi-tenant business building to be constructed on Lot 7 of the Hudson Center development site, which is north of Crestview Drive and west of Badger Drive. The proposal consists of a 6,002 square foot building that would accommodate 2 tenants who are proposed to be Chase Bank and Sleep Number. And the plans also include a drive-through and bypass lane. The drive-through is pretty much just to accommodate an ATM. There will be no hand-to-hand interpersonal contractual situations occurring there. There's also 42 parking spaces that have been provided to accommodate both proposed future businesses, which is actually more than we would require. So with that, staff recommends approval of the concept development plans with the listed stipulations in the staff report, knowing that there are future final development plans to come.
I'll move for approval. Second.
Who's that, a second?
Yeah.
Okay. Got a motion and second for approval. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Discussion and possible action on recommending the Common Council set a public hearing date for a zoning map amendment from I-1 Light Industrial to B4 Central Business District at 727 Second Street, Operation Help.
So Studio EA has provided a rezoning application to rezone 2 parcels at 727 Second Street. The desire for the rezoning is to allow for decreased setback along the side and front yards for proposed building expansion, as well as to allow for Operation Help to operate their nonprofit at the location. Under a B4 zoning designation, I will note that conditional use permit would be required for any type of use that goes in there if it were to be approved as such. With that, staff's recommending Plan Commission forward a recommendation to council to set a public hearing date.
So moved. Second.
Got a motion and second. Discussion?
I just have a question. Will that go beyond the setback requirements? Is it?
No, so B4 would follow the same setback requirements as B3, and right now that is a 0 setback requirement for front and side yards. Rear yard is the only one in downtown that pretty much requires a setback of 25 feet.
Okay. All right.
Anybody else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Discussion and possible action on recommending the Common Council set a public hearing date for a zoning map amendment from PRD 1, Planned Residential District, to RM1, Multifamily Residential at tax parcel 236-2001-02-040 Hanson Brothers LLC.
So I do want to make a quick correction on this one. Actually, their proposal is to rezone from R1 to RM1. So the PRD component, it still exists, but that's going to be kept in place through the master plan CUP that's there. It currently does have an underlying zoning designation of R1, though, for single-family residential, but the applicant is proposing to rezone it instead to RM1 to accommodate for a multifamily future development. Currently, the land use designation for the site is actually medium-density residential. So it's halfway there to accommodating such a use, but they're looking to upzone to RM1.
I thought the deal was, if there was one, that we would keep it medium residential, not multifamily.
And we would be. Medium density would be accommodating for both types of uses.
So I have more of a administrative or procedural question.
Yeah.
Does that matter with respect to notice?
Not at this time, no. So like,
I mean, it's noticed wrong.
in the meeting packet it is, but we haven't sentenced a public hearing date yet. And that's when we'd have to send out the public hearing notice to the paper and such. So right now, we're just setting a public hearing date, or recommending council set a public hearing date.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
But is it wrong on, what you're saying is it's wrong on its surface, so, but That's not what it says here on the agenda.
Right, yeah.
So we legitimately can't approve it because it's posted wrong.
That's my question.
Not in this case.
Why? Is there a lawyer, Ryan?
I'm nervous about that one.
I would tend to err on the side of caution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we're second guessing it, then we shouldn't do it.
Move to
Right.
postpone.
Okay.
I'll second.
All right, got a motion and a second to postpone. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Tiffany.
That's all right.
Discussion and possible action on City of Hudson zoning code update project.
Great. So Cedar Core, in conjunction with city staff, has been working diligently on providing a rough draft update of our zoning code for Plan Commission's review. So with that, I will pass the mic over to Bob Colson from Cedar Core, who is going to give a presentation on the work that they've done so far.
Talk amongst yourselves while I get set up here. So, well, good evening. We were here before, and you will see us several times in the future. We are obviously working on your zoning code amendment, and it's a comprehensive rewrite, which means we're looking at the entire ordinance, but we're not going to present the entire ordinance all at one time, and so I think in your packet there was several things in there, and I'm still waiting for my machine to get caught up here. So there was an overview of your ordinances, and there was a listing of permits and things that the city has done over the last 5 years, and then there was an actual ordinance, and we're going to end up going to that ordinance as we move through this. Let's see if am I getting in? Did that not open that? There we go. All right, so these are things I want to talk about, but not necessarily right now. All right, so here we go. All right. So, so what we want to talk about tonight is to discuss, your current zoning ordinance outline, as I said, and then we're going to review a summary of your permits, and really how those maybe are going to affect some of the work that we're doing with your ordinance, because then I'll talk about those in a little bit more detail, and then we're going to just go ahead and review the draft that we have of the ordinance, and it's important to realize this is a discussion, and so if you have questions, get my attention, try not to throw anything hard at me, but maybe something, to get my attention, and I'll do my darndest to address your concerns. But this will not be the only time that you have to look at this. There may be several other times, but just realize that we need to start somewhere, and this downtown overlay was one that staff thought was probably one of the more important ones to begin with, and we'll talk about maybe what's going to happen with that as we go through that. So your current zoning code outline, you know, there's 8 chapters or articles, if you will, in your ordinance. And I got to say that your ordinance is pretty darn hefty. And part of our job as a comprehensive rewrite is to look at your ordinance and try to figure out a way to say that is more effective and efficient, both for the public and for staff as they have to administer it. So as you look at those 7 districts or the 7 chapters, we're going to spend probably a bulk of the work that we're going to be doing in the rewrite is going to be in Article 1, terminology and purpose, you know, making sure that the definitions are clear and the purposes of each of these districts is well understood. But probably the bulk of it is going to be in Article 3 with the zoning districts. You have a lot of zoning districts, and some of them may get collapsed, some of them may stay. We may look at creating new districts, but so a bulk of the work is going to be in Article 3, and then in Article 4, the performance and design standards is going to be quite a bit of work in there as well. We will touch on everything here, but those 3 chapters are probably where we're going to spend the bulk of our time. And as I said, you know, we're going to look to modify these articles to better convey what's included in them. We may have to rearrange things in there to fit the article, looking at design standards, and we may consider, you know, some separate articles like we're going to talk about tonight as an overlay district. And I want to spend just a little bit of time on this because I think we asked for a summary of trends that the city has been having because the ordinance, the zoning ordinance touches on some of these things, and some of it doesn't. So, for example, you look at the third line down, the conditional use permits, and over the last 5 years, you've had 44 of those conditional use permits. Now, the ordinance that we're doing is, in some cases, we're going to try and reduce these numbers, but in some cases, we're just going to make it more effective, efficient for the city and staff to get through these. So we may be able to, in reviewing the ordinances, each chapter is to look at what is really a conditional use permit, and maybe some of those could be permitted uses, maybe not. The next thing is this downtown design review, and there's 65 of those, and that's I think that was one of the reasons that staff thought that we should start with this section first. That's quite a bit of work that comes before staff and the Plan Commission, and we're not trying to necessarily reduce that number in this instance, but what we are trying to do, and you'll see as we get into the ordinance for discussion, is trying to make it more efficient and effective, easier way to deal with that as you go through that review. Rezoning, 28 of those, about one every other month. One of the symptoms that you can look at going forward is when it's time to maybe look at reviewing and amending your zoning ordinance is the number of rezones that you have coming before the council and the Plan Commission. This is a number that we are anticipating that when we finish this comprehensive rewrite, that at least for the first 3 to 5 years, that number should drop down. But we're not going to get everything right, and so there will still need to be some rezones. But you should see some relief in terms of that number going forward. The others are just, kind of a summary of those trends and, which ones need a public hearing and which ones don't. And I didn't really plan to spend much time on these next few slides unless there's a specific question about one of these trends.
I was just going to comment on the
Yes, sir.
on the rezoning. We're just about out of dirt. There's no more surrounding property to come into the city that would require a zoning. We're just about done with that. It's going to be more internal.
But still, people,
Rezoning,
people, yes, and
Yeah.
that could be. But I think you're still going to see opportunities or problems where I want to do this, but it's zoned for that.
What I'm saying, I think it'll be internal to what's already in the city, changing use or changing characteristics.
Most of it,
Then
yes, I agree.
properties coming in requiring rezoning from an agricultural to a city.
Yeah,
Which we
I
have.
agree. I agree,
Oh,
and
thank you.
hopefully we can reduce that number for you. That there's not as many of those happening that's going on. But the city is going to continue to grow, and this ordinance is going to be around for a long time. Hopefully, it's not going to be another 40 years before you revisit it. But maybe it will survive that long before you need to do something with it. But you're exactly right. Most of your stuff is going to be confined internally right now. So. More trends there. Last one on trends. And now I want to get into the downtown overlay district. And I think, I don't know if the commission can review things different than what's on the screen, because we did send out the ordinance, and it is by line. So if you have a question, we can refer to it by a line number. Otherwise, we can follow along on here. I can bring it up on the screen if we have a question about it. But the important thing is that, you know, I'm here tonight to generate some discussion, and we're here to work with the city, and so this is not our ordinance, and so it needs to say what the city wants. We think that we're going to do a good job in getting there, but it's going to take some dialogue between the two of us to get there. A couple of just housekeeping things about how this one is set up. There's some cyan highlighted text. That's text that we're looking for some direction from the Plan Commission in some instances, and a lot of times it's going to be staff, but it's going to be that we're looking for some direction from the city, and we'll go through those as we go through it. And then the yellow highlighted areas are things that are really there for us to make sure that as we progress through this, that we don't lose track of cross-referencing and some of those things right there. So, if we, I'm going to get my ordinance out here so I have it in front of me as well. So I think that one of the things that is probably the biggest change that I would see going into this is right there in the purpose statement. And I'm going to give a high level overview of each section. I'm not going to read very much of this ordinance unless we need to. But I do want to spend a little bit of time on this first section on the purpose statement. And this is one that I think I would like to read, that purpose statement, because this is, like it says in there, we're changing your current code. It is more prescriptive in terms of how things get done. And we're suggesting that we move to a code that puts a lot more onus on the applicant to convince the city that this is best for the city, these proposals. And so it's a little bit different, and we'll talk about that as we get through it. So if you would indulge me just this one time to read to you, and then after that we'll just go through the slides. But so the purpose of this district is to blend the physical and functional aspects of multiple uses, such as residential, commercial, cultural, institutional, entertainment, into spaces with strong pedestrian connections. That's really an important two sentences. But it's also to preserve and restore the unique and historic buildings, ensure that there's a coordinated design of new building and changes to existing buildings, and to minimize adverse impacts on adjacent properties, and aid in improving the overall economic viability of the district. That's what this section is about. And if you read this, you'll see that we're going to bring this back into play throughout this section of the ordinance. So we really wanted to do that and make sure that this is where we're headed. One of the key things in talking to staff is make sure that we understand and maybe really think about this early on is that it's important that your downtown, as important as it is that we preserve the historic aspects of it, looking towards a mixed use and a pedestrian connections. Those two pieces are going to be really important for a viable downtown moving forward. Having people downtown and living downtown and working downtown in many different aspects is going to be an important aspect, but they need to fit in with the theme of the downtown. And so I'll go down and look at, so one of the first blue aspects, or blue lines, is on my page is on line number 9. And it's, there was the downtown visioning guidelines for policy and design quality back in 2007. We read that, and I'm not sure, and in talking to Mike and Tiffany, I'm not sure just how relevant that study is anymore, and if the city really wants to cross-reference that as we move forward. And so if you haven't read that, you might want to take some time to reread that. I don't need an answer on this tonight, but at some point, I need an answer whether we're going to remove it. So if no one says to remove it, it's going to stay in the ordinance. I don't think, and we don't think that there's a lot in there that is necessarily relevant to this ordinance anymore. I think a lot of it's been taken care of, but that's not our decision. And then as we move down, making sure that there's a downtown map and it's available for discussion to view, and just making sure that the title of the department is correct, and that it's going to be down there at that area. And as we move into section point 2, the first one is properties in the B3 Central District. This is highlighted yellow, and I just bring this to your attention because, this is one where as we go through, we may rename B3 to something else. And so we've highlighted it yellow just in case there's a change, so we don't lose track of it. And it's important that right now that we're saying that the overlay district applies to any kind of development in this overlay district, in that downtown district. So and we've described that there's minor and major projects that could happen down there. We also wanted to just bring attention that it also does include that these ordinances would include franchises and national chains. And it's important as you get further down in the ordinance with the architectural standards, because they may have some color schemes that may not exactly fit with the downtown, but I think that there's some room to negotiate. And so we just wanted to be very clear in the very beginning. But this ordinance is a zoning ordinance, would not apply to interior remodeling. It doesn't mean that a building permit isn't required, but it wouldn't be required through the zoning ordinance.
So is this the section where you're saying no chains or franchises can come into Hudson downtown?
No, it's not at all. It's just saying that if the franchises are going to come, they are going to follow the same rules as everybody else. And we just want to be very clear with them. And I think it's probably especially true in the downtown when it comes to facades and color schemes. I don't know if you've been up to Hayward, but
Yeah.
there's a McDonald's in Hayward that looks very rustic. It probably, that's the kind of stuff that may happen in downtown Hudson, rather than get the generic McDonald's that's all glass.
I don't know if we have on the books or not, but everybody always says there's no franchise or chains allowed downtown.
No, it doesn't say that in your ordinance currently, and we're not proposing that.
Okay.
So, we wanted to make sure they fit like everybody else.
Okay.
And in today's world, more of them are used to having to do that,
More and
get
more.
locations than they used to in the past. So they have,
Yes, and so we want to put them on notice very early on in the ordinance, and then it's very easy. And then we'll talk about that a little bit later in the architectural standards, because that's really going to apply. So we said it does apply, so there will be a permit, and right now, and we're talking about that there is a permit, and right now, the Plan Commission is, as the ordinance stands, is going to be reviewing minors and majors, and we'll talk about that as we get through this. We talk about the zoning map will be available, and whether or not we want to publish a website in the ordinance, and we'll work that through with staff. Reviews are done by the Plan Commission, and there will be a list of permitted uses and conditional uses, and it'll be impossible to list everything that can be allowed down there. But if an applicant comes in, they don't see what they want to do, but it's similar to something else that's on the list, staff would bring that to the commission, and the commission would say, yeah, we agree it's similar, we will allow that, or no, we disagree, that is not similar, and we won't allow that. And so it's not an all-inclusive list, it'll be very, very comprehensive, but it's not all-inclusive. The review process, like I said, the forms will be available through Tiffany's office there. Staff review, I put the ZA with a question mark. I got to make sure that I have the zoning administrator is the proper title, and so we know that is the proper title in there. The Plan Commission right now, as it stands, will review both major and minor, and that's a question that that I'm going to be asking the Plan Commission. I don't need an answer, but I need you to think about this. So, you know, there's minor alterations and repair, and maybe that's something that staff could review. You know, it deals with, you know, replacing of doors and windows and maybe some painting and some roofing materials. Or if something gets damaged that has already been approved, maybe rather than coming before the Plan Commission, which then would end up to the council, maybe staff could take care of some of those things. And if staff feels uncomfortable, they would always have the option of sending it to the Plan Commission. But right now it's written that everything comes before the Plan Commission. So think about that in terms of it. And then there's the majors, and that's some pretty significant changes, and it also requires architectural review. And we'll talk about, we can get through that as we go through this. And so in 17.4, the submission requirements, and this is for major and minor. And so there's a narrative, and I think this is probably one of the most important pieces, regardless if it's a major or a minor, that you have a narrative. And the applicant is going to describe a timeline, a schedule, the construction processes they're going to use, so that you understand it, and how they're going to integrate the physical and functional aspects into the downtown theme, and the impacts to adjacent properties, and their contributions to the economic viability of the downtown. That's going to be an important discussion that you want to have with these applicants as they are coming into your downtown. They may provide you floor plans and sketches and to convey the scope and scale of what they're doing, and then a description of maybe what would appear like. And that could be photos, drawings, sketches, samples. And it'll be a fairly simple review process for that. But when we get down to the major, in addition to that same architecture review, it's going to be a little bit more detailed. But now we're going to have some architectural review standards, and they're there to demonstrate that the applicant understands the significance of being compatible with your downtown. And so they're going to convince, you know, the city that they understand and they fit. The city's position is that, you know, we want businesses, you know, in downtown and in Hudson, but we want to make sure that your business is going to fit, especially in the downtown area. And it's going to be up to the applicant to convince the city that indeed is relevant. And so there's, you know, and these terminology that they're using for the architectural standards, these are major renovations or major projects, and typically there's going to be an architect involved. And so this terminology are things that most architects are very, very familiar with and comfortable in describing and talking about. And then there's signage, screening, outdoor seating. We do have a question about parking. You know, the parking is always an issue, especially downtown. And if there are parking requirements, allowing the applicant to you know, negotiate or to share parking. And right now we put in the number. There's no significance to it other than it's a number. We're saying within 200 feet of that property, if they can share parking, that would be okay. We'll work that number with the city to make sure if there has to be a number. But sharing parking is something that the ordinance, you know, the parking ordinance is going to allow, or at least we're going to propose. And then the setback. The language here in the setback is right out. This is verbatim from your ordinance, and I just wanted to make sure more that staff is comfortable with this percentage of a building needs to be at the setback, and then a certain percentage could be set back a little bit in to allow for seating and some other things with the building. And then how do you deal with corner buildings? And then lastly, there's the administration piece of it, and Plan Commission right now, we're anticipating or suggesting that within 90 days of a complete application, that the Plan Commission, you know, needs to act on this, and the Plan Commission's action would be, you know, recommend approve or denial or approve the conditions. Unless there is mutual agreement to extend the deadline. And you would just talk to an applicant and say, listen, we need more time. And if the applicant refuses to give you more time, say, well, then I'm sorry, then we're going to have to probably recommend denial because we just need additional information, additional time. So, but it's going to be with their consent that you can go beyond the 90 days. If an applicant disagrees with the commission's recommendation, then there's a timeline that says, you know, when you can appeal that, and that appeal would go to the council, and then the council would have a certain amount of time to render a decision. And then finally, there's fees, and we'd recommend that the city just review its fee schedule with this to make sure it's still relevant. But also realize that in the ordinance, it talks about that if staff or the commission or the council needs to go outside for consultants or professional help, that those costs are going to be borne by the applicant. And we'd recommend that if you are going to go outside, if this language stays in, that you at least alert the applicant before you go and spend their money, that we're going to be spending their money, so it's not such a big surprise to them. That is pretty much, you know, from 10,000 feet what we're proposing for this district. The last thing, and then I promise that this is the last thing for me, is just going forward. In talking to staff, there was a lot of interest in starting with this district because there's a lot of activity in this district. The whole rewrite process is going to take months, you know, maybe more than a year. Is this something that we should be looking at, that the city would want to amend right away and keep this amendment in the existing ordinance, and we would continue on with the rewrite, and then when the rewrite would happen, we would fold this into it. The only reason I'm asking that you consider this, if it is because we got to make sure that if you're going to amend your ordinance to include this ahead of everything else, we got to make sure that we leave all the cross-references to your existing ordinance so it can live in the old ordinance until the time that the new ordinance comes about, and then it would live in the new ordinance. So that was a whirlwind, and I guess I'm guessing that maybe there might be some questions or comments that you have. Otherwise, I will follow up with staff.
Anybody?
I think there's a lot more reading for at least me to do to what you have here, and then meshing it all together to get myself comfortable with what, and then hopefully come up with some things that, quite frankly, I think we're probably missing a few things.
Anything off the top of your head, or you're
No,
just,
no,
okay.
but diving deeper into the parking issue, diving deeper into franchising, diving deeper into what does historic Hudson downtown need or wants to stay. I
Right.
think we just need to
Perfect.
review it for more review.
So my suggestion or recommendation would be that as the commission works through those questions, you know, you have our contact information, but we would recommend that you go through Mike or Tiffany with those as a point of contact, and then they would pass it on to us, and then we would go back through them, and it would get disseminated back to the commission. Rather than, that way everything, you know, the city is in the loop with whatever's going on. And it just seems to make more sense that you would go through staff with your questions and comments rather than directly to us, so.
Are there some of these things I don't think we have access to, like at least Susie and I and Pat don't have access to?
Some of the documents that were referenced in the
Yeah.
code. Yeah, I could send those to you.
That would be
through
great.
email, certainly.
What was the question?
Just some of the documents, because we're not on the council or part of the actual government, that we don't have access to them, so I was just asking if we could
Okay.
get those
All
sent to us.
And if you were asking the question about how do we feel about starting with the downtown overlay district, personally, I think that's the right place to start, because that's going to be under the most pressure the soonest, given what we have going now.
Yes.
But that's my opinion.
Yeah. Just so you know that, through what we've done so far, we've probably eliminated 40% of some of the fluffy language. I mean, your ordinance was very, very wordy. And I don't think that we have reduced it to the point that you've lost anything from what was there before. There was a lot of stuff in there that just didn't quite make sense. That you would need to define so many of those terms in order to really get so a person would know what you're doing. So and that was a big part of when we reviewed or interviewed for this job, for this project, was our philosophy is it needs to be to the point that it doesn't put the city in any harm, but it should be, as much as you can make it readable to the average person, and so we're trying to make it that way.
A lot of that fluff came from the fact that this commission and the council and everybody in downtown wants the historic Hudson to stay where it's at, but enjoy the new stuff,
Yeah.
but making it comparable to what we vision Hudson to be, if that makes sense.
It does to me, absolutely.
So
But-
that fluff now is gone, so we're gonna have to add more.
Well, you will add fluff over time, but, yes,
So
ma'am.
on that, the fluff that you've removed,
Surgically removed.
yes, will we see this?
Yeah, I spoke with Mike and Tiffany. We had a meeting just this morning before the meeting and asked that question. And yes, what we will do is we will, I didn't bring it tonight, but we will, going forward, we will show you what's coming out, the major stuff that's coming out.
So
you
we'll
can
see the
that.
original,
Yes.
and we'll see the
absolute-
revised side by side.
Absolutely.
Okay, and then along with that, can we also have a copy of your presentation tonight? The comments that you were working off of on here? I don't know if that was all in.
I tried to work strictly off
Pretty much
of there. I mean, I didn't read from there. They're just bullet points, so you should have what I. If there's any specific questions, I will get those to the commission. But it was just me just kind of reading between the lines rather than mine shows exactly what yours does.
But I think what she's asking is if she could get like a PDF copy of the presentation.
Oh, yeah, oh,
presentation
yes, I'm
itself
sorry, I
that
may
you
have just
said.
misunderstood. Yeah, we'll send that over to staff and they can ship it out to you.
Thank you.
Yes.
So I've got a couple things. Does this deal with, or are you going to be dealing with signage at all?
We will, the entire ordinance, we will open up signage specifically and go through that in detail.
Okay.
And if you see,
I've struggled with that for years.
That's why I'm smirking. That's why I keep, because I saw it, that you're going to
It
do it.
does say it in there, and so there's some references that we have, some yellows for references, and signage is one of them that we will be reviewing, and when we do, by reference, it will be included into this section. We're not going to write a specific section for signs. It's going to be a section, and when it does apply specifically, it will say that in the signage piece, but it will be referred to by reference. Same thing with parking and landscaping, and then bulk and density setbacks. Those are all going to be by reference to this ordinance, so but they will be reviewed, yes.
Okay.
I do like the fact, though, that they're saying that sign replacement, like the police department sign that was damaged, doesn't have to come in front of Plan Commission anymore. That just makes me happy.
Yeah.
It
I'm
drives
sorry,
me nuts.
what-
I'm
what-
just
I
saying it
didn't-
was, I like that you're cleaning up things that just bog everything down. Like,
we're suggesting
we don't
that,
need to
yes.
approve a sign that's the exact same sign that got damaged 2 weeks ago to go back up. You know what I mean? Like, that's just dumb. So,
Well, again, it will speed things up, but it should make things effective and efficient is the kind of the terminology we're trying to hang our hat on.
Redundancy in government, what are you talking about?
I spent almost 20 years in government, so I understand government all too well, so.
The other thing that I would ask is that if you come back with a document like this again,
Yes,
could you do something other than that cyan? I can't read this.
That's hard to look.
thank you. Those kind of comments go a long ways with me, absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
It looked, and when I see it printed, I can see it looks completely different when I see it electronically,
yeah.
and so I got to remember to kind of print it out and see what it looks like on paper, so thank you for that.
orange works.
Sure. Anybody else? All right. It's great to see you. Thanks.
We
for coming
probably
in.
won't be here every month, but when it's relevant, we'll be back again over the course of the next 20-something months here, so.
All right, so, and we'll have to figure out about a suggestion, because obviously we don't have any action on the agenda for this tonight about whether we're going to start with the downtown overlay, and we'll figure that out for the next meeting.
Yeah, and I don't know if Mike spoke with you, Mr. Mayor, but I'd like to have a conversation with you after the meeting, we're
Sure.
putting together a press release, and I just want to just have a conversation with you about
Perfect,
that?
yeah.
Okay.
Fine. Pat?
One comment I had is if people want to see what a 3-story building looks in a 2-story downtown, Main Street of New Richmond right now has changed. And I don't know the name of the intersecting streets, but it's just north of where Erickson's had their grocery store on that corner. Just north of that is a new 3-story building.
Okay. Field trip.
So it's just a way of seeing for real what that
Yeah,
looks like and
absolutely.
how that visually affects the rest of them. And I don't mean to make a comment good or bad about it, but there's just a good example of it in that setting.
Along those
Thanks,
lines, we did
appreciate that.
include, and I didn't touch on this, and it was in my notes to touch on it, but on your screen right now, there is a section in the architectural stuff that talks about the scope and scale and massings of buildings, and you know that, you know, what to do and what not to do. And so if you look on there, there's this, so if you have a series of large buildings, that it could be, somewhat taller, but not that, it
Right.
doesn't quite fit, nor does it fit, substantially shorter. So we're looking at maybe some standards to help make sure that things fit. We also had a discussion with staff that on the ends, it may be a little bit different, so we may look at a different treatment just to understand, the beginning and the end rather than just always looking in the middle of a block. But we did address that, or trying to address, that it needs to fit with what you have down there, so. And this would probably be incorporated, this sketch, something like this would be incorporated into the ordinance, help people visually understand just what we're talking about, so.
Cool. Anybody else? All right, thank you again.
Thank you very much for your
Appreciate you being here.
time.
See you after the meeting. All right, what did I do with my agenda? Do we have anything
That
else?
was the last item.
All right, so I don't have anything. Anybody?
Move to adjourn?
Second.
Got a motion second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. We stand adjourned. Thanks, everybody.